So let's start with let's introduce yourself and your organization and tell us what you're passionate about, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris, again for having me on. So I'm Ryan Knox. I'm the Director of Marketing and Innovation at Flexfab, which Flexfab is a industrial manufacturer, 60-year-old industrial manufacturer from Michigan. And we specialize in manufacturing silicone hoses, actually. So
Wow,
probably not the traditional thinking
interesting.
future guest for you, but I've been able to focus over the last couple of years on some pretty cool things, not only on hardware stuff and moving into new areas of our business in the transportation industry, but I've also had the pleasure of working on new technologies with an initiative we call FlexFab Digital, which is something where we basically take manufacturing challenges and problems, common manufacturing challenges and problems, and we solve them with technology. Specifically,
Interesting.
specifically machine learning and AI seems to come up often for solving some of these problems. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm actually planning a new venture here in 2022 where I'm going to be doing that full time. So
Wow, fantastic. So
yeah,
tell us a little. So you're saying, what exactly is a silicon hose? I
silicone
mean, where
host.
do you
Yeah,
use it for?
yeah,
So many things come to mind. I'm like,
yeah.
is this just like what I use to water my lawn? Or, I mean,
So that's a rubber. Yeah. So silicone is a rubber hose, just like we use to water your yard. Except for, silicone was invented specifically for high temperature, extreme durability requirements, and so it's specifically used in the transportation industry, heavy duty truck, automotive, aerospace. If you don't mind, I'll give you the I think really fun story of how we started.
sure.
It all started about 58 years ago, 58, 60 years ago in that range, with our founder, Doug DeCamp. I think he was at 20, 25 at the time, and they started making silicone hoses. And somebody from Boeing heard that there was a company in Michigan making these hoses, a little company, and they came to him and they said, Doug, what do you think? Could you make this specific fire retardant hose that we need for our aircraft? We've been trying to make this for 2 years. It seems like nobody can figure out how to make something that'll meet the fire requirements. And Doug said, "Okay, I'll give it a shot." And the next day, he had a working prototype. And 60
Wow.
years
At
later,
one
yeah,
day? That's
yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yep. And so 60 years later, we're still in the same industry, making some of the same solutions, fire resistant, fire retardant solutions for aerospace, ducting, air ducting. And if you see a truck driving down the road, a Class 8 truck, it probably has our hose on it. So,
Wow, fantastic! And it
yep.
sounds like this particular. So, are you saying that this particular substance, or is it like silicone, can be used for like tons of different things?
Yeah.
But what makes it specific to your use? I mean, why do you have to use silicone in
Yeah.
what you're
So,
doing?
right. So, that's a good question. It's the high temperature and it's the extreme durability requirements that are needed for it. So, like for example, if you were going to seal around your fireplace, there's a few different solutions for it. If you need something that's extremely high temperature, you're probably going to use some type of I don't know, mortar or something like this, or there's some extremely high temperature products. But if you need something that can get up to like 500 degrees Fahrenheit, you're not going to be able to use a traditional sealant. Like you can't go to Home Depot and buy, just some regular sealant that's made with a water-based sealant.
Right.
You have to use a silicone because silicone is can withstand that extreme high temperature. So
Hmm.
it's the same type of concept. It was made in the 40s and 50s during wartime. Silicone was, and we use it for in all areas of our life. It's stuff that's being implanted in our bodies. It's being used in electronics. Um,
Oh yeah, it's
it,
everywhere. It's
yeah,
everywhere.
that's right. That's right. Yep. And there's a global shortage right now, so it
How can it
impacts
be
it
shortage?
impacts
I mean, isn't
everything.
it made out of sand? I mean, I don't know
Uh,
anything about what it's made out of. So, like, don't we have enough sand? There's this Sahara over there. Like, just
well,
like go get some sand.
Well, I don't know if I don't know if there's any supply chain people right now, but they're probably already have. If they have any hair left, they haven't pulled out. They're probably thinking this guy. Yeah, of course there's enough sand, but there's not enough miners. There's not enough, there's, you go from up here in demand and supply to all of a sudden your demand goes to here. And then all of a sudden your demand goes to here again, all within a very short period of time. And so,
wow. So maybe, I don't know. Can you tell me a bit about the process? I mean, does it start with sand? I mean, do you just basically start with sand and then run some process over it? I have no idea. It's funny. This is a substance that we use everywhere. Our phones are covered with it. Like you said, we put it in our bodies. It's like in everything around us. But we know so very little about the actual substance itself and how it's created and where it comes from. So
yeah,
I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that?
I could probably tell a little bit about it, but I'm a lot better with the technology stuff, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with a silicon metal. Is where it starts, which is something that's mined out of the ground. It has methane that's combined, and basically there's only a handful of companies in the world that actually mine the materials necessary, the silicon metals and the materials necessary to.
So it's not
put
sand.
It together.
It's like a special hard to find metal. Is that right?
I believe so, and I'm sorry, I'm not as educated.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. I should be more educated, and it's funny. It's funny you ask me about this because I have a market researcher on my team, and he was supposed to give me a report on the global silicone supply chain and the operation structure on Tuesday, and something happened where he couldn't do it, and so I would have had the best possible answer for you if that would have worked out, but instead I look like an idiot because but yeah, no, I
no, it's fine. Actually,
it,
this is good because I was under the misconception that it was readily available and easy to convert, and I had no idea that it was. I know it's obviously not as rare as some things, but it is still pretty rare. There is a supply chain and
petroleum
conversions.
Yep, petroleum based, and so
Oh, really? It's petroleum based?
Yeah.
Oh man, does that mean? Does that mean it's environmentally unfriendly, like all this other stuff that we have to try and get away from it, or
It's not possible. When you talk about environmentally friendly, at its core, I would say no, it's not. It's not. It's not the worst thing for the environment when you talk about like greenhouse gases and things like that.
Yeah.
But are there greenhouse gases and chemicals that are used to compound some of the materials that other companies are using? Yes. Flexfab is actually a pretty unique situation. We were actually just awarded here recently as a leader as a green company, actually.
Oh, cool.
In Michigan for our efforts to be sustainable and use sustainable materials and whatnot. So
congratulations. That's great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So but yeah, no, it's a very interesting business, but it's also a business, as you said, it's been around for a little while. We've been selling similar parts for 60 years. And so the leadership team hired me and to say, what else should we do? Where else should we go? And, I don't know if you can relate to this, Chris, but sometimes you say, hey, what else should we do? Where else should we go? And then you don't actually want the answer.
Oh, I can totally relate to that.
sometimes the answer can be a little frustrating, and so we've had a couple different answers.
It's like, here are the 100 things that you could do. Which one? Low hanging fruit.
Yep, exactly. So I'm interested in technology, and so the interesting thing to me here in manufacturing is just, I know that there's a lot of very innovative people that listen to your podcast, and if there's one thing to get across is that manufacturers in the Midwest, we might not be as sexy as some of like the really cool things that you want to develop, but we need technology too. And
we need it bad.
We need it bad. And the reality is, Chris, is it's just not being developed and commercialized in a way where manufacturers are adopting it. And so that's kind of where I ended up moving into.
So you're charged with coming up with new uses for this substance that you're creating. Is that right? So like you've got the hoses. There's like a certain default set of products that you're selling now, but you're looking at what else you can do, right?
Yeah. So what we did what my job has been over the last 4 years was first what you said. What else can we do with silicone? What else can we do with the processes that we currently have? And we've worked on that. The second thing that we said was, what other materials and processes should we invest in that our existing markets would be interested in? The most important thing, I think, when you're going into a product strategy, product development phase, is if you try to go into new market, new technology, that can be a bridge too far. But if you go into existing market, new technology, or new market, existing technology, or vice versa, that can make sense, and that's what we've tried to do. So we've looked at where else can we use our silicone technology. We've also looked at what else would make sense for us and kind of our core competencies in our existing markets. Because if
Hmm.
if you read off right now the largest transportation manufacturers in the world, pretty much all of them would be our customers. And so as a small global manufacturer, that's a pretty cool position to be in. And all of them love working with us. We've won all the awards. And so what else can we sell them? And so we went into some other hardware directions, Chris. Like, for example, we're investing in thermoplastics,
Hmm.
which is a kind of a new technology to lightweight, become more durable, which is important for transportation markets like aerospace and heavy duty truck and automotive. Um, but then there's the other thing that I think we're here to talk about today, which is manufacturers need technology, like software technology, and it's not being used. And so we've used Flexfab to validate some cool technologies, and then I'm actually going out and partnering with these technologies and commercializing them in the field. So it's kind of three different directions that we're taking.
So you're saying FlexFab is a subsidiary of this company, or is it a completely different unit and it works with other companies?
So today, it's a different unit within FlexFab. It's like a business unit within FlexFab, but we're planning in 2022 to split off and start a completely new thing.
And what is there a particular range? Like we were talking about thermoplastics, is that a completely different set of processes and equipment to use, or are these just different materials running through the same process?
So thermoplastics, this is a completely different process, completely different material, just for our existing markets. But there are similarities with the thermoplastic technologies. Like if you're going to make, for example, thermoplastic ducts, for example, you need to be able to know how air flows, and you need to be able to understand certification requirements and standards and testing and all the things that it takes to be able to sell into the aerospace industry, for example. So
Hmm.
there's some synergies and there's some things that are completely new.
Okay, and then so you're saying you're charged with bringing the software technologies to these companies. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, do you have a research layer, or is there a lab, or how does this all work?
Yep. Yeah. So it depends on which avenue we're talking about. So with silicone, the process is us, because we've taken advantage of most of the markets we have. After 60 years, we have most of the markets. So with silicone, it's a process of market research and exploring completely new markets for the most part. And it's saying, where else can we go? What is it going to take for us to enter there? So for example, with silicone, evaluating things like entering the life science market or the food and beverage market. So if you look at the back of one of those pop machines or soda machines that you go to at a fast food restaurant, you're going to have silicone hoses back there that are moving the fluids around. Or if you think on a larger scale, if you go to a food and beverage distribution or filling facility, you're going to have those types of technologies, or brewing company, or what have you. Same thing in the life science, medical space, pharmaceutical. They're going to use these. So the process is us analyzing these markets, the product market fit, and then putting together a commercial plan for pursuing that. On the thermoplastics front, it's all about the voice of the customer, working with our customers um, to understand what problems they have that are unsolved, where thermoplastics could potentially play a part in solving them. And for the most part, anybody listening to this that's familiar with the aerospace industry, they know that it's about lightweighting. So how can we lightweight and how can we save money? So if you can save them money and reduce their weight, you're going to be the best supplier that they can
Yeah.
come up with. And that's the cool thing with thermoplastics is that's two of the features that it offers is typically lighter weight than metal or thermoset technologies. And I guess we're getting into the details now, Chris. Might be getting too deep into the
No,
too
no,
deep
it's
into
fine.
the details.
I'm
But
interested in this. It sounds
Yep.
like you're doing the same thing though. Like a lighter weight and a lower cost would be the lighter weight actually drives to a lower cost anyway, right? Because you fuel costs and you have all these other ancillary costs due to lifting heavier things into the air, right?
Yeah. So basically, how it works in the aerospace industry is um, everyone wants to innovate and do something cool at the very beginning of the aircraft's development, and then you get to a time where you realize, oh shoot, we're overweight, or oh shoot, we're over budget. And that's the point where you have to say, okay, now we have to come back to earth and say, how do we make this lighter and how do we make this
Yeah.
less expensive?
Yeah,
And
make this ultimate airplane, and then you
yeah,
realize, oh man, now we've got to step back and step back and step back. That's the
exactly.
problem with it's like thinking of it from the wrong angle, right? I mean, you're saying
Mhm.
I got to load this down with features as opposed to looking at it from the what's my end result. I mean, bringing in all the possible parameters, including the lightweight and the lower costs. Go
Well,
on.
and think about the future on this. Like, if we're wanting to get into new technologies like electrification or hydrogen fuel cell, weight just becomes more and more important for
Hmm.
that transition to work. So, yeah, it's super important.
So you're saying you were brought in, or your group was created
Mhm.
to look at all these new things that you could build. I mean, and you were talking about how you're presenting all this stuff and only a fraction of it, or like people don't like to hear the answers that you're providing. So how do you break through that barrier? How do you get leadership to say, oh, hey, you said you wanted us to be innovative. We're being innovative, but you need to help us be innovative. How do you break through some of those barriers?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. It's and I want to clarify. It's not that they don't want to hear the solutions.
Oh
It's
no,
that
they definitely
it's
want to
a
hear it.
it's it's that the solutions are sometimes out there though. Like,
Yeah.
well, why that? Why there? Why and so to answer your question though, the most important thing is to understand each level's what makes them tick. What of the decision making process. So it's never just one person. At a good organization, it's never just one person that's making the decision to invest in the future. And so what's important to the leadership team is probably different than what's important to the business unit leaders. And it's probably different than what's important to the engineering team or the R&D team, and might even be different than the operations team. And so I think the most important thing is to understand what's important to each person. And if you can
Right.
understand that, then you can relate to each shareholder that's helping make the decisions for how we're investing in our future. And so, if there's anything that I could recommend, it would be that. And um, the other thing that you have to do is you have to understand, um, if you have an innovative mindset and you're in an industrial manufacturing company or something that might have a very traditional way of going about business, um, you really have to take the time to understand how they do business today,
Yep.
because you
Yep.
might want to come into the business and say, well, geez, this is a $200 million market over here, addressable market. How can we afford not to go after this?
Right.
And they're like, hey, wait a second, we're used to receiving orders from people, and you're just telling us about some hypothetical market that you think you've identified. And so you have to find a way to bridge the gap between how they typically work, how the company typically works, and doing new and different. And if you focus too much on the new and different and you don't focus enough on on connecting the dots with how they typically work, what's going to happen is it's just always going to sound like la la land, like, oh, the marketing and innovation people or the business development people or whatever your role is just out in la la land. They're
Yeah.
it's the, I don't know, whatever, the next shiny object that they're looking
Yeah.
at. And so
It's too you're disconnected. You're too far away from the core part of the
that's right.
business, and you have to keep. The problem is that a lot of innovators are like way over here. We want to do the newest, latest, greatest thing, but then the core business is here, and you can never. You have to try really hard to get back to this point and sort of try and pull them along, because they're going. Especially if you're in a company that's doing as well as you guys have for as long as you have, it's like, well, this works. Why should we do anything different? Now, I understand we want to grow, but why can't we just incrementally increase what we're doing instead of doing something way out there? And I think you're absolutely right. You need to reconcile those two visions and go, well, what can we do that's in this sweet spot between these two? I think of it as it's almost like a Venn diagram. It's like, I want to go
Yeah.
over here and you got to go here. Well, so how do we bring these circles together so
Yeah.
that you have that sweet spot in between where that's where you can build the new products?
Well, and if people are listening to this podcast, it's probably because they enjoy their echo chamber of futuristic people, right? Like, I like talking to you, Chris, and I'm sure I would like a lot of your listeners, because we like looking at the future, and it's really important to us. But now more than ever, futuristic type thinkers, people that are looking out and care about thinking about the future, we feel as disconnected as ever right now. And the reason
Yeah.
why in manufacturing, the reason why is because everyone's struggling to keep up with the here and now.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if you're a futuristic thinker and you're going to your VP of operations and she's saying, Ryan, I don't have any, this isn't what I'm experiencing, but I imagine people are
Right.
experiencing this. I don't have any time to talk about the future. Do you realize all the problems I have right now?
Yeah.
Why are we even,
Yeah.
why are we even talking about this?
I can barely get today done. You want to talk to me about 10 years from now, or
Exactly.
5 years from now, or even a year from
Exactly.
now?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to lay the groundwork of connecting with that person. In the case we just talked about, this VP of operations type of person, and understand what's important to them. And if you understand what's important, it's not about manipulating or anything like that, but it's about understanding. And if you can come to them in a way that connects with their way of thinking, then you can kind of bridge the differences.
Yeah.
And I think that's, regardless if it's in business or anywhere else, I think that's the right approach.
But at that particular, and you're talking about manufacturing companies and older line manufacturing companies, but it's the same everywhere. I mean, when I did some work at Yahoo, it was the same thing. You think, oh, here's a cutting edge Silicon Valley company, and you'd still have that kind of, those issues where we want to do this thing that's way out there. And we thought you'd be interested in doing this thing that was way out there too, because we thought you guys were like a cutting edge Silicon Valley company. But
Yep.
in reality, bottom line. So you
That's right.
gotta pull back in and say, what can you do? I mean, I remember once when I was working at a bank, it's kind of like we were talking about all these great new ideas that they were thinking about coming up with, and I'm like, wow, this is the same stuff that was implemented in the cement industry 5 years ago, but to
Yep.
them it's brand spanking new and cutting edge. And I'm like,
Yes.
wow, sometimes this job is easy because you're like,
Right.
all you have to do is look at another industry and go and step back a little bit and say, what did they implement 5 years ago? Okay, oh wow, this is great.
That's exactly right. That's right. We see that in automotive and heavy duty trucks. So heavy duty trucks are our largest market.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if you want to see what's going to happen in the heavy duty truck market, you just look at what happened in automotive 5 years earlier. Not all the times, but they're just higher volume and more vendors and things like this. So I definitely understand what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying, so you've got to, it's almost like design thinking. You got to understand your customer, and your customer is, the leadership they've got the purse strings and they know where the next set of products are coming from, and you've got to provide them with something that works for them in
That's right.
addition to everything else that you're doing. So
Well,
yeah, no, I totally see that. And then do you have like a CINO, like a chief innovation officer or anything like that at your organization that can help sort of is in leadership and can help drive things through?
I'm probably the closest to that role right now at Flexfab. So yeah, I'm not doing anything like that, but or we don't have a role like that. But I also think about, to your point, some of outside of Flexfab, some of the markets that are interesting. I think about I don't know if you keep up on the cryptocurrency market at all.
Oh yeah.
But I'm connected in
Come on, man. Crypto is the future.
Yeah. No, but the thing, I've been in crypto for 4 years, and and what I see is, come on, guys, it's about mass adoption. It's about mass adoption. It's about mass adoption. And we launch these products and we launch these things that I'm like, my dad would have no idea how to use that thing, you know.
Exactly.
And I'm talking to my brother, and I'm like, hey, you should check out this tool that allows you to get this great return, you know. And he's like, wait, what do I have to do? I got to do
Yeah,
this, then plus
exactly.
this, then this,
It's totally in the world of the nerds and the geeks. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna get it past that, because I mean, even here, like, there's a couple of coffee shops that accept Bitcoin, and it's like, come on, seriously.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's just we have to, but as innovators, what we have to do, once again, I'm a broken record here, we got to find a way to connect with how people are going to use the products. And it's the same thing you were just talking about, internally understanding understanding your internal customer versus your external customers, and understanding what everyone cares about. And then you can connect the dots. And you know what, at the end of the day, if your view of the future is correct, then I guarantee your CEO wants to support it.
Yeah.
I guarantee that person wants to support it. And and we think that people are against us because they don't think like us. And that's what we need to figure out a way to get through that, regardless if it's crypto or being in an innovative role in our jobs, or working as a startup and trying to connect our vision for our product to the market, or whatever we're trying to do. I think that's the most important thing, is connect with the way people think.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think the problem is that a lot of people who are sort of futurists and think about the future and live in the future, they don't want to connect with the past, or which they think is today, right? Because if they're living in the future, today is the past, and they're like, oh, you know, the past, that's done, that's over and done with. We want
Yep.
what's next and what's new. But the problem is that if you don't provide that guide or bridge to the future, then people are going to get totally lost. They go like, oh, that
Exactly.
future looks great, but how am I going to get there? And,
Yep.
you know, you have to step into that role and say, okay, you know what? You know, I'm real excited about what's going to happen next, but I can see that you're on that side of the river and you can't cross because you don't see the bridge. You know, I have to build that bridge to you so that you can come a little bit closer to
Exactly.
where I am. So we
Exactly.
need that sort of liaison type role
Yep.
with the people who are living in today to help
Yep.
guide them to that sort of future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt.
Yeah. So that's so have you done anything like that recently?
Yeah. I would say where I've had the most success with that of realized success is on the software technology. So we have implemented a AI machine learning tool for demand forecasting at Flexfab, and I'll do a little
Cool.
bit of the background on that. It was, so the process we went through was trying to take a look and saying, you know, what are the root issues that are causing our greatest operational issues. And I sat down, I talked to our supply chain analyst, or supply chain director, I mean, and I said exactly that question: what's your biggest problem? And I tried to get down to the root issue, and he said we have a 8-week lead time with our customers, but a 12-week lead time from our manufacturing facility in China, where most of our high volume businesses or production is. And so we have a 4-week gap there between what our customers are expecting and what we can actually deliver.
Right.
And so
you'll never have a good time with that. Never.
And so at that point, I'd never done any research. I just, you know, probably like a lot of the listeners, I just think about AI or machine learning, and I generally understand what they can be used for. And so I started looking around for a tool that could potentially help with this, because I thought we have like decades of data that we could build a model off of.
Oh yeah.
A model has to be better than whatever we're using right now. A machine learning model has to be better than what we're using right now. And so I found a company called Remy. They're out of Sydney, Australia, and they were working with, and this goes back to my point we talked about early on, where it's like, there's hardly any startup technologies that are solely focused on manufacturing. I mean, if I type in Google right now, demand forecasting solutions for manufacturing, there's not a lot that comes up.
Yeah, good luck, because it's not sexy. That's the
That's
problem.
right. That's right.
If you're not. But the funny thing is that that's where the money is. The money's in the
That's where the money's at.
non-sexy fields.
It's
Just like talk to
unbelievable.
Mike Rowe about that, right?
Well, it reminds me of I don't. Did you ever watch Parks and Rec,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
series
yeah,
Parks
yeah,
and
yeah,
Rec?
yeah.
And
Great show.
the one guy, he says, "Man, I really want to start a business. I don't know what I want to do." And Ben is like, "I have this great business plan for a oh shoot, a dry cleaning chemical distributor." He's like,
Hmm.
I don't want anything to do with that type of business. And at some point they came back and they're like, that was like $1 million idea. But yeah, you're exactly right. It's not sexy. When you're coming out of like one of these prestigious schools and you have like this awesome team of people, you're like, it would be awesome going to the Midwest and talking to a bunch of,
Yeah, exactly.
manufacturers.
Some obscure manufacturer that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah. Let's head to Idaho and talk to them about demand forecasting. No,
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
and so, but we did a bunch of research and we found this company who was primarily selling into the e-commerce space. Where
Interesting.
they were e-commerce companies who really benefit from keeping a low inventory, and they want to turn over their inventory as quickly as possible. So they were using this product, and I said, well, geez, this will work for manufacturing just as well as it work for e-commerce. And so we connected with them and we did a back test, which means we gave them like 3 years of our data. And we did this comparison of how our forecasting actually worked versus what their forecast would have done if we would have been using
Right.
it. And the crazy thing that came out of it, I honestly didn't expect this, but we had a mean absolute error, meaning we were plus or minus this of what we actually sold from what we thought we were going to sell 2 months before was 50%. So
Whoa.
plus or minus 50%.
Yikes.
And so I did some research and I'm like, man, this is like, I can't believe we were that far off. And I did some research and actually the average absolute error for manufacturing is 49%.
Holy cow.
Which you think about right now, like what we
So
were
you
talking
were
about
average.
earlier. Yeah. So you think about like the supply chain issues that are happening globally right now, like holy cow, like 49% is the average that we're off on our
Shocking.
demand forecasting.
That's
It's
actually
shocking.
ridiculously high and crazy that it's the average.
That's right.
Crazy.
So the Remy product achieved a 20% forecast accuracy, which is
Oh,
a
that's
60
a huge. That's a huge
60%,
difference.
yeah, 60% improvement. And so right
Wow.
then I'm like, oh, found it. Like I had no idea if it was gonna work, but it did. And so ever since
Are your
then,
margins like really, really low too? So even a tiny improvement would be like a massive improvement
so yeah,
down the line.
so think about this for a manufacturer. When your forecast is off, what happens is you get a bunch of orders that are dropped in on your production last minute. So what does that do? Your schedule's off, which means you're going to be paying overtime. When you manufacture it in China like we do or somewhere overseas, now your expediting fees are going to be through the roof. Your inventory costs are going to be crazy because you're going to be producing way more than what you need, because you
Yep.
need to get your customers your product, but you don't know for sure. You've learned over the years you got to produce more than what they actually need. So
Yeah.
your inventories are crazy. Your inventory
Just throws everything
turns,
off, man.
everything, all the profit. It's all of your profitability is just screwed up from this demand forecasting. That's why, remember the first thing I said was I wanted to figure out what the actual root problem was.
Right.
And it's like, because you can improve your scheduling, you can improve whatever you're expediting, you can try to get lower costs on these things, but if you don't improve that primary thing, which is the actual forecast, you're not going to fix those things in a major way. And so after that, we we implemented it and are continuing to implement and use it right now. And we're actually taking it out, and we've partnered with Remy, and we're actually selling it to other manufacturers now. So
Wow. Would
Flexfab
you say
went
that
from,
that's a
yep.
common thing, that this demand forecasting? I mean, even it's just a little bit. I mean, demand forecasting has been around for a while, right? It's is it common that this is not something that's being used in your space?
I have only personally talked to I've personally only researched one company that's using AI and machine learning, um, in a and that's Amazon. That was the first company that I researched that I knew was using AI and machine learning for this use case. Um, every single company that we talk to, and I've talked to dozens of them at this point, coming up on hundreds of them.
Hmm.
Um, I've never met another company that's using AI and machine learning for demand forecasting.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And I'm
insane.
talking large companies. I'm talking multi-billion-dollar companies. But think about this though, Chris. So we're so the process for us to get the data that we have is we are receiving the data from our customers. So I'm not going to call any of them out by name, but they're the largest transportation manufacturers in the world. And so anybody that's supplying the largest transportation manufacturers in the world is getting the same data that Flexfab is getting, and which is resulting in us having a 50% demand forecasting accuracy. And so this is very common. And really, if we could improve at the very top the demand forecasting, it would actually help all of the smaller component suppliers in a significant way.
Wow. You'd think some of these larger companies would have some of this stuff because it just makes so much sense, right? I mean, crazy.
I don't. Yeah, you said you worked for Yahoo, Chris,
Yeah.
for a period of time.
Hmm.
Now Yahoo is obviously a great, very forward-thinking company. Were you impressed by the level they were using technology in the day-to-day operations?
Absolutely not.
Right. And I've
Under
never
the
met someone.
covers, it's
Yeah.
it's the same sort of thing everywhere. It's like they look great from the outside, right? From the outside, you think,
Right.
"Wow, those guys are so cutting edge and so cool," and then you get inside and you're like, "What the hell is going on here?"
You said it. You said it. I don't know. I don't know how to say this, Chris, because that's it. I mean, but it's everywhere.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah,
and it sounds like you're throwing stones at a specific company,
yeah,
or not. There's
yeah,
only a couple companies in the world. Like I said, do some research on Amazon demand forecasting. They're
yeah,
doing it at an elite level, but that's
yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
That's
No,
Amazon.
that's right. I mean, in fact, one of the things, one of my clients is rolling out a new revenue management system, and they're in the hospitality space. And I didn't even know anything about revenue management before I started working with them. And I thought to myself, wow, I mean, basically, they're using AI to forecast demand.
Yep.
Forecast occupancy,
Yep.
forecast all of this stuff, and they're setting their prices based on thousands of data points that are coming in, and AI is setting the price to the perfect point where they maximize profitability and they increase the fact that someone's actually going to get the room,
That's
right?
right.
And I'm
That's
like,
right.
wow, it's like, why isn't everybody using something like this? If this is all out
That's right.
there
That's right.
and it's being used by these companies, why can't everybody? I know Amazon for sure is using something like this to set their
Yep.
pricing and all that other stuff. And if you think about it, the investment might be huge up front, but the what you get out of it in the end is just huge. It's massive, massive.
Chris, you have a Stanford banner behind you and a certificate, so it makes me think about not only is it available, Chris, it's open source. It's
Exactly.
open source, and companies like Stanford have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into developing these open source technologies
Yeah.
that you and I could go find on GitHub right now.
Yeah.
Think about the value of what we're talking about.
Hmm.
Think about this open source. That's
Yeah.
and it would
It's insane.
literally, there's not one single, I've never talked to a business. I just got off the phone. I can't mention names, but I just got off the phone with somebody, and AI, if we can implement it with them, it would completely changed their business completely.
Wow.
And it's a brand that everyone listening to this would know, and it's a futuristic brand, and they're not using these technologies today. They're just
Wow.
not.
But
And they're
isn't that
tech
part of that out
forward
of
brand.
fear though? Because leadership is like, oh, I mean, leadership might be okay with it, but maybe the corporate overall is like, man, what would happen? This would be a huge change for us. We wouldn't be the same company anymore, and they're afraid
I don't think
of
so.
change,
You
right?
might be right, maybe in some cases, but here's been my experience. Okay, and I'm stealing this from somebody else. Said this, but here's what a lot of CEOs are doing. I went to the 3-day conference where I learned about AI, and I learned everything that you could possibly learn about AI except for how to apply it to my business.
That's
Right?
absolutely right. I can see
And
that. Yeah,
but that's
yeah,
what's
yeah.
happening. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying. I hope I'm not coming across in a negative way, because that's not what I'm intending.
No, I mean you're
It's
speaking the truth, man. I mean that's the thing.
this is this is just what's happening right now, and it's everyone. It's everyone. It's me. I'm sure there's blind spots that I have where I'm not seeing opportunities. I'm a marketer. I'm not automating marketing strategies in a way that I should.
Yep.
But for FlexFab, that's not making a huge impact. What's making a huge impact is something like demand forecasting, because
Yep.
that's going to impact literally every area of our business. And so it's really essential that I think everyone listening to this, that we find a way to connect. I keep saying connect the dots, but now we need to connect the dots to what's important to us, to the technologies that are available, and
Yep.
and make it real for people. I'm telling you, us futuristic type people, we try to show off with how much we know, or maybe we're not really trying to show off. Maybe it's just that's just how we come across, but that's not valuable. We need to find a way to connect with people in a way that they understand, and in a way that resonates with them. And
Yep.
people understand things, but it doesn't resonate with them. They're
Yep.
smart people, but they just so that's what we need to do. And that's where, hey, demand forecasting team, what if you had a better number here?
Mhm.
Oh, that would make my life a lot easier. Okay, what if we
Yeah.
automated this replenishment work that you're doing? That would free up my time to be able to do all this other stuff that I don't have the time to do right now. That's where
Yeah.
you're connecting. That's where you're connecting with what's important to the actual users. And then when I'm talking to the executive team, it's, hey, look what this is going to do to cash flow. Look what this is going to do to profitability. So
Yeah.
that's what we need to do.
Absolutely. All right. So it's time to think like a futurist. It's the
All
year
right.
2031. What's the world going to be like? What's your organization going to be like? Where are you going to be? What are things going to be like in 2031?
Yeah. Well, I believe that in the next 9 years, next 10 years, there's going to be a mass adoption of AI and machine learning.
Hmm.
Maybe even more specifically, machine learning in manufacturing is what I'm thinking about right now. I would love to talk about cryptocurrencies if you want to talk about that too, but in
Another show.
manufacturing, yeah. Well, I mean, even like cryptocurrencies, like they're stable coins and things like this could be used in a much more diverse way within manufacturing. But specifically with manufacturing, we have to find a way to use specifically machine learning to make use of our data. And what I like to say is, um, you know for probably the last 10 years, so if you would have asked me in you know 2011 what's going to happen, I probably would be talking about cloud technology and how manufacturers are going to be adopting this technology, and we're going to see this huge huge increase in data collection. And the next step is utilizing that data, and
Hmm.
that's where machine learning is going to come in. And so that's where I'm starting a business in 2022 to help companies make that connection. And that's so I'm putting everything. I believe in it that much that I'm stopping doing what I'm doing at Flexfab to focus on that, because I really do believe over the next 10 years, it's not a matter of if, but when. Virtually every larger manufacturer, at least $100 million plus manufacturer will be using AI, machine learning at a significantly greater level.
So what do you think is going to happen with manufacturing on the whole? Like, I mean, are we going to stop seeing so much manufacture being done overseas? Are we going to be bringing more stuff back to the
Yes.
states? Are we going to have, like, where's 3D printing fit in all these things?
Exactly.
Because everyone talks about 3D printing like it's like, oh yeah, it's going to revolutionize manufacturing. It's like, but how much has it actually, and will it?
Yeah, so let me give you a couple stories with that. So don't let me forget some of these topics because you're bringing up a lot of good topics, 3D printing and all that kind of stuff. But the first thing that you said, bringing stuff reshoring. So here's what the process has been, over the last 30 years. Get production, do our typical production, and just find lower labor. Over the last 10, 15, 20 years, the process has been figure out a way to automate certain portions of our process, which automation is less labor, so we can bring products back here locally. Even before COVID, you could see the writing was on the wall because manufacturers aren't going to continue to chase low labor around the globe. Asia is
exactly,
no longer.
That's exactly what's going to happen because you're just going to go to the next country and the next country and the next country.
We're not going to Africa. That's what some people would say is that we're going to go to Africa with manufacturing. It's not happening. It's just not. The infrastructure isn't there. Maybe in small kind of micro regions. Speaking of micro regions, that's what will happen. It would be micro manufacturing closer to the user regions. That's when additive manufacturing is going to come in. Third-party logistics is going to become more important than ever. Electrification is going to become more realistic for trucking because you're going to have a more regionalized. You can already see this with Walmart distribution centers. You can see it with Amazon distribution centers, regionalization of distribution. And so yeah, to answer your questions, manufacturing is going to come closer to where it's ending up. The reason why is because we can't afford the supply chain, can't afford the labor doesn't make sense anymore globally, and that's the reason why AI, machine learning, is absolutely essential, because companies need to find a way to become more competitive in the local market with something other than labor. So if a company hasn't found a way to use robotics to automate, it might not ever happen for them because we've been doing that for 20 years. So the next iteration is making use of data, gaining better insights, improving efficiency, and producing locally. And that's where 3D printing comes in. And so you asked me a big question, so I'm giving you a big answer. But with 3D printing, I'll give you an example. Here recently, are you familiar with the aerospace industry much at all, Chris?
Not really, no.
So, but everyone understands the aerospace industry. It's very expensive and very, very difficult to get things certified, and the regulation requirements are very extreme. So let's say that Ryan and Chris organization, we wanted to start tomorrow and we wanted to supply the aerospace industry. It would take us years just to jump over the regulatory hurdles to be able to make something for the industry. Now, the FAA and Boeing has provided some type of certification. I'm not sure exactly what the terminology is here recently for a 3D printer that you can actually buy, put it in your facility, and the printer is actually certified to make FAA parts.
Ooh,
so
interesting.
So now, assuming you can meet the Boeing or whatever OEM requirements, FAA requirements for your facility, ISO requirements, so AS requirements, so on and so forth, you just plop down this 3D printer, and all of a sudden you can make aerospace grade parts. Now, why is that important? Well, because aerospace parts are going to be lower volume. So if you're a traditional manufacturer and you're pressing metal pieces, let's say, well, you got to buy a tool. Well, tools are expensive, and the materials are expensive, and machinery are expensive, and space is expensive. So now what we have is, and we're going back to thermoplastics. We talked about thermoplastics earlier. You can make thermoplastic parts from these 3D printers and spit out two parts, and it would cost you significantly less than what it would from a press, for example. So that's where we're going,
right? We're fabs on every corner.
That's right.
Where you could just say, if I need something, I need a new case for my iPhone, I'll just order it up, and I'll go to the corner, and it'll be 3D printed by the time I get there. So, but that's way out there.
That's hard for even me to imagine, to be honest with you, because the cosmetic I have some guys on my team that they have home 3D printers, and I needed a bracket, and they make a bracket, or they needed a cap or something like that.
It only takes 48 hours to make a bracket. I could have gone to Home Depot.
But the cosmetic requirements that we want for our stuff, I don't know. I'm a bigger believer that there's just going to be more distribution centers, and people are going to be using demand forecasting, and you'll have 1-day shipments, mainly because of the strategic placement of distribution centers. But but you might be right. Maybe it'll be on every corner. Who knows?
Well, until we invent home replicators, when that happens, it'll be a happy day for me. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, go ahead and reach out to me on LinkedIn if you'd like. I'd love to connect with anybody. Our current website, like I said, I'm going to be moving to a new company that I'm starting in January 2022. But if you want to go to flexfab.ai, so that's FLEXFAB.ai, you can see our Flexfab digital parts. What would be really interesting would be to connect with anybody that really, especially people that are in seats like I'm in, where you're at a manufacturer, you love the manufacturer, you want the best for the manufacturer, and you want to figure out how to use technology better there. I'd love to talk, and even if we don't do any business together, I'd love to share my insights of what I've learned and try to help any way I can.
Very cool. So I'll put your contact information in the show notes so everybody wants to get in touch with you. Thank you so much. This has been great. And you know what? We definitely need to do a show on crypto.
I want to do that.
We got to do that.
You let me know when you want to do it. Yep. Let's do it.
I'll send you a note.
Chris.
Thanks, man.
We'll
Talk
see
to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.